Today, we're going to be taking a trip back in time. We're going back to the year 1876 here on the Canal Experience, and you're going to be riding with us on a canal boat. And that canal boat, well, we're going to be telling you a little bit about the Miami and Erie Canal and what it was like to ride on a canal boat back then. And you'll be going through an original lock, not a rebuilt lock, not a restored lock. The same lock the boats were going through in 1840 when they passed through this area. I'm going to be the interpreter. In our scenario, the captain is in defiance, and so he left me in charge. I'm in charge of telling the people a little bit about the boats and about the canal and what they can expect on the journey. Anybody? Are you doing that because I told you about the hogs? Well, that's all right, because, well, we carry a lot of hogs here in the volunteer, and folks are always getting off before the hogs get on. It's a unique part of history that we're able to share. The work that we do on the canal boat, the way we run the ropes, the way we dock the boat, the way we lock through, all of that is the same as they were doing back in the 1800s.
My character's name is James Bodie. My task on the boat today will be operating the tiller. The job is called the steersman. My job is to make sure the boat doesn't drift into the trees or run into the canal wall, and if we have to make a left turn, I'll make it, and I have to maneuver us to get into our historic lock.
Sally and Molly have been with us now for 19 years. They're 23 years old. They know every bit of this canal, a lot better than the rest of us who work here. And Sally's always in the front, Molly's always in the back, and they're a pleasure to work with. Sally and Molly greeted the day, smelling coffee, Johnny cakes, and a bale of hay. They're rested and ready and full of pep. Cincinnati gets closer step by step. Hitch 'em up, let 'em go, those good old mules walk real slow, but they'll get you where you want to go on this Ohio Canal. The song about Sally and Molly, it's a song about canal boat mules, but I have to put their name in the song because, well, you know, they're part of the family here. Music was a big part of canal boat life, and there was always somebody on every boat who was making up songs about the places they went, the things they did, the people they met, and that was a form of entertainment for them. And very few of those songs exist because they weren't made up by songwriters, so they didn't write them down. They were just boatmen who were entertaining themselves. And I've tried to carry on that tradition here. And all they had to work with were shovels and picks and wheelbarrows and their own strong backs. And this is part of the song that he wrote about that. I was one of the navvies who worked with shovels and picks for 30 cents a day to dig this big ditch. We ate cornbread and beans washed down with some whiskey, and we lay down to sleep in our small wooden shanties. We dug this canal, it was 40 feet wide, then cleared out the towpath 10 feet on each side. There were 103 locks that took the boats up and down, and we were pulled by 2 mules who just poked along. I enjoy everything about working here. Riding the boat is wonderful, you know, doing that kind of work and telling people about history, enlightening them to things that they didn't know before. The lock itself is nothing more than a little room. Inside with the gates closed, it's 90 feet long, 15 feet wide, plenty big enough for our boat. It's just a wonderful thing to be able to impart that knowledge to people. And at each end, there are big gates. Those are called whaler gates or miter gates. And those gates weigh 3.5 tons apiece. And on top of those gates, oh, look. This looks a little bit like one of those whaler gates. And now I get to tell the captain's wife that I used the washboard today. She'll be pleased. But on top of each of those gates, oh, now don't be disturbed about that. I know you heard that splash. Don't be disturbed about that. That's just us disconnecting from the mules. We have to do that in order to get into the lock. It's for the mule's safety. Now, you can see up on top of those whaler gates, there are handles. And those handles are attached to gates that are under the water. They're called wicket gates or paddles. And those wicket gates, when we turn those handles, the wicket gates is going to turn sideways, just like that. And that's what lets the water in and out of our lock. You see how close we are to this lock? We're very close. There's only a few inches between this 12.5-ton boat and that lock wall. And when we let the water into this lock, this boat's going to move backwards and forwards and sideways, and it'll hit one wall, maybe two, maybe more than once. We never know. It's always different. But if your hand is outside this boat, when it hits the lock wall, it's going to break your hand. And nobody wants that. So the best thing to do, just keep your hands and your heads inside the boat. There are 3 types of stone in the lock. The very top layer, the one that you see us walking on, that's a quartz sandstone. Came from the peninsula area of Ohio. Down below that, you'll see 4 levels of nicely cut limestone. It's even decorated, has little dimples in it. But those 4 levels of nicely cut limestone that are always above the water, those came from Marblehead and Kelly's Island. They brought them up the Miami River on flat-bottom boats as far as they could, and then by wagon the rest of the way. But down below the water line, there's about another 10 feet of water down below this boat right now. And all of the limestone that's below the water line was quarried from the bottom of the Miami River right across from us here. The thought at the time was that limestone had been sitting underwater for thousands of years, and it would hold up better underwater in the lock than this dry stuff they pulled out of the ground at Marblehead. That is the original lock. It was lock 9 on the Wabash and Erie Canal, lock 44 north on the Miami and Erie Canal, but to the boatmen who worked in it since 1840, it was always the Providence lock. It's the same lock the boats were going through in 1840 when they opened up that inlet at the Providence Dam and filled this canal all the way to Toledo. But this was only one of 2 major canals here in Ohio. Everybody on the boat worked a 6-hour shift. You had one bowsman who threw the ropes, one steersman who steered the boat. You had the hoagie or mule driver. You had 2 sets of mules and one captain who owned the boat and one cook who was usually the captain's wife. That was your basic crew. And they had a mule stable in a lot of the boats. If the boat was taking 2 sets of mules, they had a mule stable in there. And on this canal, it was in the center of the boat. On most of the other canals, it was in the bow of the boat. Now, 6 hours is important because a mule can go 8 to 10 hours without getting tired. A canal boat day went from 3 or 4 in the morning until 10 or 11 at night. And so you're always going in the early morning, always going after dark. But a boat could go 24 hours on this canal because they didn't close it. Now, folks, remember I told you that we had to disconnect from the mules in order to get into the lock. Well, we have to get out of there somehow. So Mr. Bodie and Mr. Box from the mill are pulling us out. You can see if they're able to pull us out, get us up to speed by the time we hit the end of the lock and get connected back to the mules, those mules are not working as hard as you might think they are. They'd be working a lot harder pulling a plow in a farmer's field than pulling our old canal boat.
My goal at the end of any trip is for the passengers to have a good time.
We mix in some light banter and things like that in there. It's going to that confectioner in Defiance.
Yes, sir, it is. You know what happens? We get Defiance, we don't have that molasses on board.
That puts us in a mighty sticky situation.
That does put us in a sticky situation.
It's pretty easy to get into character. You know, I know my character very well. Even if we're not going back in character, the passengers are still getting an authentic look at what it was like to be on a canal boat. And I think that's a very important thing to be able to convey to people because the canals were so important to Ohio's early history.
I have actually learned a lot more than I was ever expecting. I've learned a deep minutia of facts I was never interested in, never knew that they could have ever existed about our mill, about what life was like trying to operate these boats.
It appears we're turning around, and it's illegal to turn around on the old canal here. It's illegal because we might get mudlarked or stuck. And if we get mudlarked, well, all of us will have to be running back and forth here on the deck to jar us loose, and if that doesn't work, we'll have to get out and push.
It's given me a bigger perspective on the place where I grew up and where I come from and what made Ohio the state it is.
This is a part of Ohio's history that people forget about a lot. And we are in a unique position to be able to show people what it was like back when the canals were running.